morning and welcome to your 10 a.m. update from the People's Progressive Party Civic. I am your host, Eddy, and I'm joined this morning by Zulfikar Mustapha, the Executive Secretary of the People's Progressive Party and a candidate in the 2020 elections. I'm also joined by Steve Ninvalle. He's also a candidate of the People's Progressive Party in the 2020 elections. Zulfi, Steve, good morning and welcome to the program.
Morning, and thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Eddy, and good morning to you, the viewers, and Steve.
All right, so another day, Guyanese are waiting for a conclusion to the electoral process, which they voted on March 2nd. It's more than 4 months. We're going into the 5th month, and still the elections are not yet concluded, despite the public, the world over knowing that the People's Progressive Party Civic would have won the elections by 15,416 votes. The efforts to frustrate the process, the efforts to hang on to power, the efforts to steal the elections are still being pursued by the APNU-AFC cabal, headed by no other than David Granger himself. I'll ask for your opening thoughts with regard to where we are, because Guyanese are frustrated with the process. They want this over as soon as possible. I'll start with you, Zulfi.
Well, as I said, Eddy, good morning once again, and we are now exactly 4.5 months since the election was held, and we are still awaiting the result. And as you rightly said, that this de facto government is trying all their best to hold on to power and hold on to government and trying to put all kind of excuses in place. We have seen they are now running out. They are now running out of excuses. The last one they pull off is another matter in the court. And of all of us, the entire world are saying, and the entire world know that the CCJ have already pronounced on that issue that they are taken back once again from a lower court in Guyana here. And I'm optimistic that come this weekend, before Monday, that we'll have a ruling which will vindicate once again the will of the Guyanese people. That is, that the People's Progressive Party Civic have won the elections. And we are seeing the desperation also of these people. And because of that, they are holding on. They are holding on to power for a day, a 2-day, a 3-day. Those are, and I feel that they're just holding on because they want to continue with their illegal act that they have been perpetrating on the Guyanese people. They want to continue to give out state lands. They want to continue with the corruption that they have started since 2015. They want to continue to give their friends and families and their cronies these gifts, as I said, land. And they want to continue to put their cronies into various positions in state boards. So that is why they are holding on. They fully well know that they will have to come out and relinquish power from this country. And I am very heartening to see that not only the People's Progressive Party is the only party that is saying that we won the election. The entire world is saying that now. We have seen more than, and we have heard it yesterday from the United States ambassador, more than 130 countries around the world are saying that the People's Progressive Party Civic won the last election. And we are seeing they are trying to do all their best to remain in power. And this beast, no other, or no lesser person. He is the mastermind behind these excuses, these plans to destabilize the country in holding on to power. So my opening thought is that we are getting closer. We are getting very closer where the will of the people will prevail and the country will have a new government, and that government will be the People's Progressive Party Civic government, and Dr. Irfan Ali will be the new president.
Thanks, Zulfi. Steve, I want to bring you in here, and I want to point out, Zulfi made a very important point there. because we have seen over time attempts by Granger himself to try to distance himself from everything that is happening. But the fact that he has not, uh, stating that he is the leader, but has not condemned all of this or sought to concede, knowing that he lost the elections, is a clear indication that he is behind the rigging plans.
Um, yes, of course. But before I delve into that, I want to say one thing. Is that the entire modus operandi of the de facto government since this election is the equivalent of a political and electoral quicksand. And they have been moving and moving and moving, and every single move they have made has sunk them deeper into despair. And like Comrade Zulfi rightly said, we are nearer and nearer. With every move that they have made, we become nearer to the goal, not our goal, but the goal of the Guyanese people, because we have been democratically elected by the Guyanese people. It is not Granger or it is not Carmon, it is not anyone, but we were democratically elected by the Guyanese people. As a leader, as a good leader, as someone who has a military background, Mr. Granger would understand that it all rests with him. But what we have been finding since the run-up of the election is that posts have been moving. And it's only recent that Mr. Granger would have said, based upon the laws of Guyana. Now, that is another move from him saying that we would have accepted the rule of the court. Now they're saying based upon the laws of Guyana. I would think, and this is my humble submission, that as a leader, and as a leader claiming integrity, it is only opposite, it is only right that Mr. Granger would accept, would concede, and would let his followers also know that during our 5-year time in office, we have made some slips, and we will go back to the drawing board and we will come back. It is important for me to note that this is what the PPP did in 2015, even though I am still one who is saying that there is an election petition in, and I don't honestly think that we lost that election. But we did the right thing. We came out, we filed our petition. We went back to the blackboard and we came back victorious. And this is something that anyone can do, because it hurts me as a Guyanese. And this is not a Guyanese who is a candidate of the PPP. It hurts me as a Guyanese to see my country being taken down this road, to see the torment and the frustration that this country is being pushed, or is being pushed upon this country because of the selfish nature of a few people. This is not 5 people the PPP has won by. We have won by 15,000 votes and more, 15,400 and counting. And I think the time is ripe, as it was yesterday, that the United States would have said, 1, we have imposed visa restrictions on some people. And it is even good that those names of those persons have not been given out. Now everyone is wondering who is and who is next. So I applaud that. I applaud that the British government would have given an official statement also on that. I applaud that Canada has also. As a party, the PPPC has never called for sanctions for Guyana. We have called, and we would not welcome, I'm not saying we would not welcome, but if that is what the United States has to do, that is what they have to do. But you have a certain set of people who have pushed this onto this country. And again, the rigors of these elections are being targeted and will continue to be targeted. And that I applaud, because democracy must reign. And democracy must not reign for one set of people, but democracy must reign for the entire country.
Thank you very much, Steve. And you raised an important point, because we've seen the narrative being pushed by the APNU-AFC somehow to paint a picture as though the People's Progressive Party would have been calling for sanctions on Guyana and the Guyanese people. But it's important to note that the calls have always been for those who are undermining democracy, those who are trying to rig the elections, be dealt with and face consequences. So the PPP has never and will never call for sanctions on Guyana, because we know the fact that if it happens, it will affect the average Guyanese.
But Eddy, if I can just say one thing. In perusing the news this morning, there was an article in Kaicho News which has stated that even if you are a citizen of the United States, you can be sanctioned. So there are many Guyanese-born people who are overseas, who in the colloquial term, we would say, you know, they're overseas and they shine brick. These people too can be held accountable, because if you've noted, Dr. Irfan Ali would have touched on that subject too, that many a times we have people who are overseas and think they are in their protective cloak, who will be instigating and so forth. And it is good to know that whether you're here, there, or anywhere, you can be sanctioned by the United States government and other governments also.
Thanks, Steve. Zulfi, I want to bring you in here because I want us to spend some more time on the issue of sanctions.
Good. Just before I go directly, I thought when Steve was speaking just now and say how they should give up government or give up power, those are for civil people, not dictators. Dictators never behave like that. They always hold on to power. We, in 2015, when we said that we lost the election according to GCOM, we give up and we file our petition. That's right. These are, so, as we know, these people who are dictators, who lust for power, they will not want to give up. As I said, they are using all kinds of excuses to remain another day to continue their criminal act that they are perpetrating on the Guyanese people. Now, the other thing about sanction, I agree that our party never called for Guyana to be sanctioned. If Guyana is sanctioned, we will suffer. The entire population will suffer, right? But we are calling for these riggers to be sanctioned. We have seen that the major players in the world start to put sanction on them. The United States started yesterday, and immediately visa restriction went into effect. We are seeing other countries, the Canadian, said that they will start and they will use all tools at their disposal to ensure that democracy prevails in Guyana. And I hope that they will follow suit like the Americans. We have seen the United Kingdom. The foreign secretary from the United Kingdom issued a statement yesterday, and they took an official position that they will also start sanction on those riggers. But eventually this will lead to the country being sanctioned, because when you put sanction and you have a dictatorship in place and they are being sanctioned, these dictators, we cannot, sometime a time will come, we cannot sell our product around the world. We are now a developing oil producing country. We know for a fact that we have sold a number of barrels of oil. That fund is sitting in the United States. Those funds will not be released for the development in our country. We cannot get grants. We cannot get loans. We cannot get medical supplies. You see this scenario in Venezuela that is taking place in Venezuela. So eventually this will lead to sanction on the country. And this will not affect one side of the population. This will not affect PPP supporters alone. This will affect the entire country. So good sense should prevail. The APNU-AFC, their supporters should come out and tell them to concede. They should not back them. They will suffer too. They will suffer eventually, because as long the country is sanctioned by these powers, everyone in the country will suffer. So I hope that time doesn't come that where the entire country will be sanctioned. I hope that before that, good sense will prevail. And as I said, I'm very optimistic I am very optimistic that this matter that is in front of the court, before the CCJ ruling, I said I was very optimistic. And again, I am very optimistic that democracy will prevail and we'll have a change of government very shortly. So that we will not go to that stage where the entire country will be sanctioned, the entire population will be suffered, right? I hope that with the sanction, the limited sanction and these rigors, that they will concede. And as I said, the person who have to concede is Granger himself. We have seen 2 months after Guyana's election, Suriname election was the 25th of May. And yesterday, the president-elect there, Mr. Santoki, took over the reins of presidency, and he was slashed by the outgoing president, Mr. Bottas. And both of them were on stage yesterday, and you could see. And many persons were saying that Suriname election, we have a problem if another party won the election. We have seen yesterday democracy prevail in Suriname. After 2.5 months, their election was held 2.5 months after Guyana's election. We are 4.5 months after our election from March 2nd. And up to date, we can't have a result. And the only official figure that is at GCOM presently, that figure have shown a win for the People's Progressive Party, Civic, where we have 233,000 plus votes, and APNU have 200. That is the official figure right now, the only figure that is in GCOM. All other figures were discarded. We know for a fact that Mingo produced fake figures. We know for a fact that Lowenfield produced fake figures, so much so that they have produced over seven results. These two gentlemen produced since the election. But the official figure that is in GCOM, the one set of figure now remain there, is the official figure showing that the PPP Civic is the winner of the last election.
Eddy, if I can just touch on something Comrade Zulfi said. When he was reaching out to the supporters of APNU. This is daily. I have interaction with people who would be on the side of APNU. And I can tell you, most of those persons that I speak with have already moved on. They've already accepted that the PPP have won and they need the country to move on. Most of the people I interact with, the sense that there is a small cabal within the APNU that is actually driving this force. Most of the people in Guyana need us to move on.
Thank you very much, Steve. And I want to go back, Zulfi, I want to go back to the issue of sanction again. And to lend my voice, and I'm sure Steve will want to lend his voice too, to the issue with regards to the US has already taken its position. We saw the UK, like you rightly said, and Canada making it elusive that they are going to sanction. They have already begun examining and putting together their options for sanction on individuals who are undermining democracy and who are who would want to steal elections, who are trying to steal elections. And just to say that sanctions come in different tiers, if you want to call it. You have personal sanctions, maybe like visa restrictions, etc., travel restrictions. Then they'll move to freezing of assets, confiscation of assets following that. And this is where it gets tricky. When they realize all of that have failed, then they move and you can look at Cuba, for example. You can look at Venezuela, where they do trade embargoes and they freeze assets, not just of individuals, but of large corporations, businesses that are associated with these individuals. And eventually you will find that we can end up in a situation where remittances will dry up. The trade with other countries will cease. We can end up in a situation where they will try to limit or stop foreign exchange from entering the country. And the people who will suffer as a result of this are the average Guyanese, who will be the ones to suffer more because of the fact that the country will not have access, we will not be able to sell our products, we will not be able to bring products into the country. But because of their selfish ways and because they want to hang on to power, and this is important for APNU-AFC supporters too to understand, that these guys are setting us up to be in a position where we will not have access to basic commodities that we import, that we will not have access to, many Guyanese are depending on remittances from their relatives overseas. If you don't have access to that, this will not affect just PPP supporters. This will not affect just one segment of the population. It will affect every single Guyanese. It is therefore important that supporters of the APNU-AFC wake up, so to speak, and realize that this small cabal is only interested in their personal gains, and they're doing all of this. They're opening a country to sanction just because they want to hold on to power, to maybe continue to pilfer the treasury, to continue to transfer state lands and to hand out contracts to their friends and cronies, while you will be the ones suffering. So it is important that people understand that while it starts with personal sanctions, if they hold on to power and not concede, knowing that they lost the elections, then it will bring consequences that will affect every single Guyanese.
Well, I think the United States ambassador alluded to that yesterday, Eddy. She alluded to that this is a start, and the United States government, and of course the United States government works closely in hand with the EU, Britain, Canada also. What she had stated basically is that this is just the start, and I think that Guyanese of all walks need to wake up and understand that this, as you rightly said, it is not something that will affect one side of the fence. It will affect each and every one of us. An important point also that you made, you touched on remittances, and you know how many Guyanese await that. You know, sometimes to just basically go to the market. So we are in a state whereby there must be now a collective voice, because this is about Guyana. It is not about the PPP. This becomes a Guyana thing. And if you're a Guyanese, a patriot, and someone who looks upon your country in a certain way, then you will support this cry. It's not a cry that it is anti-APNU. It is pro-Guyana and pro-democracy. And I think that any right-thinking Guyanese will want to join that cry.
What is it? I'll bring. Let me just unmute you there, Zulfi. I think your audio is.
Yeah, Eddy.
Yes, go straight ahead, Zulfi.
Yeah, so I agree with Steve and yourself with those points that you have made. I have made those points, and I know for a fact that it will affect every single Guyanese. But last night I listened to a program with two person who are working with the former government official from United States, and they are saying that, look, when United States act, they don't act by themselves, and countries in the OAS will follow the United States. Countries, as Steve rightly mentioned, in the EU will follow the United States. And we have already seen statements coming out from places like United Kingdom. Today, I think that the OAS Permanent Council will be meeting to discuss Guyana's situation. And then this evening, probably, you might hear something coming out there. Next week, the CARICOM, the regional grouping, will be meeting to look at the situation in Guyana. So not only internationally, but regionally also, Guyana can be affected regionally by the countries that comprises CARICOM, because they might stop and want to deal with Guyana. They might want to put some certain restriction on Guyana, and you know the kind of agreement that we have within CARICOM. So not only internationally, not only remittances and other grants and aids and so, but it might affect Guyanese and affect Guyana regionally. Sometimes we might not be able to to work regionally amongst our neighbors, amongst our CARICOM sisters and brothers. So the entire situation, the entire world will put sanction eventually on Guyana when sanction fail on those rigors, right? And we are seeing the desperation now. As you rightly said, some foreign-based Guyanese, especially in the United States, they are hosting programs and trying to say that Guyana must transform, Guyana must transform, and the rule of law must prevail. Yes, we want the rule of law to be prevailed. The rule of law is that the PPP Civic have won the election, the March 2nd elections, and that must be prevail. Nothing else. As I said, officially at GCOM now, there's only one set of figures, and that the figures are showing that the PPP Civic have won the election. It's a matter of time they are preventing GCOM from doing the official declaration. That is why they took this matter now to the court to put a stay and hold the declaration, right? And as I said, I am very optimistic that hopefully shortly we'll have that declaration and the PPP Civic will take its rightful place before more sanctions come on Guyana, or this small number of persons who have been sanctioned, they will chuck in and they will allow good sense to prevail, they will concede, and they will allow the PPP to take its rightful place.
What we've been watching too, and I want to, this may be the last point that we'll discuss before we wrap this up, is the fact that when you look at what Mike Pompeo said, he made it clear that not only those who are directly involved in undermining democracy and trying to steal the elections that will face the consequences, but their immediate families. Many of these persons involved may have children studying overseas, may have children living overseas. They may have their brothers, their sisters, their parents living overseas, and they too will face the consequences. What is noteworthy is the fact that many of these very persons, these relatives, maybe children, spouses, parents, siblings who are living overseas or who are traveling frequently overseas, have been silent all through this. The only person that stood out in all of this is Mr. Gaskin, who spoke out very early about the attempt to steal the elections, and that he's the son-in-law of David Granger. He has taken a very strong position, has demonstrated integrity by highlighting that APNU would have lost the elections and no amount of attempts to change that will work. A lot of people are saying, you know, they're thinking and wondering what would happen to the children and relatives of these riggers. But I think these are adults we're talking about, and they have a choice. They should have stood up a long time ago to say to Granger and to Harman and to all of them that you are doing the wrong thing. You lost. But
Eddy,
step out.
Eddy, if I can just jump in there. I think what has been happening for some time is that there was a peddling of the issues that there will be no sanctions. There will be no sanctions. And I think that people started to accept that they can act with impunity. It is now known, and it is now has been seen, that this time, a long time, that has gone. And sanctions are, and it will bite. It will bite, and it has started to. And that's why I'm saying, even from yesterday to today, the narrative on the road has changed. And if you keep your ear to the ground, you will understand that that narrative is changing. People understand that there are serious consequences, and they have started feeling those consequences. They have seen it. It is now something that they can touch and feel. And so I think that in the very near future, we will see a difference. This is just my honest opinion. And I also think that in the very near future, we will see the declaration of Dr. Irfan Ali, and we will see democracy prevailing in this country. We have been patient. We have been tormented. We have been frustrated. But as they say, sometimes the good things we will have to fight for. And I must say, and I must applaud all in this party who have done the right thing and remain patient and remain on the right side. but we will remain fighting until Dr. A. Fanali is sworn in.
Zulfi.
I also want to say, as you rightly said, that these family members, as yesterday we heard from the U.S. ambassador, that these sanctions took immediate effect, and not only on the riggers alone, but their immediate families, and so will be sanctioned. They should allow good sense to prevail. They should put the pressure, and they should ensure that these people concede, because they'll be affected tremendously. They'll be affected tremendously, and they know for a fact, everyone in this country, every single Guyanese know that the PPP Civic have won this election. So it's a matter of time. I agree with Steve. It's a matter of time before they concede. And as I said, I am very, very optimistic, very, very optimistic after this court case here, that we will have the right thing to prevail, that is democracy will prevail, and the new government will be sworn in. As a matter of fact, let us not wait until sanction come on the country, because as you rightly said, that when personal sanction, when they finish, they will go and put sanction on the country, where a lot of the trade, a lot of remittances, grants, loans, everything will be affected. And we will come a place like Venezuela and Cuba. You understand? We Guyanese will suffer tremendously. And not those riggers, because they continue to enjoy the good life. And not the ordinary folks who support them, not the ordinary folks who supported them over the last 5 years. Look, and I want to make this point, this final point before I close. Guyanese generally, Guyanese of all walks of life, their improvement in life came about under the PPP civic government. Under the PPP civic government, what they have achieved under the de facto government, or this government, nothing. The cash grant for school children was taken out. Four sugar estates were closed. Over 35,000 Guyanese lost their job, including their supporters. Their supporters working in the sugar industry. Their supporters working in the public service and other places. Many, many other Guyanese lost their jobs. So the ordinary folks out there never gain anything under this government. What they have gained only suffering. The subsidies for water and electricity, right? So all these gains, all these benefits over the years that we had when we were in government were taken away by this government. So, and as I said, and as we said in our manifesto, that these benefits will be reimplemented when the PPP Civic go in back that democracy, and the PPP Civic will once again be in the government. Here will be the new president.
Steve Ninvalle, Zulfikar, Mustapha, I want to thank both of you for joining me this morning. And to our viewers, I want to say thanks for being part of the program. We're going to be back here at 1 p.m. with another update. Until then, we encourage you to be safe.
Thank you, Eddy.
Thanks, sir.